Okay, well, thank you, Kit, and thank you, Chuck, for having me out here again. And I'd like to say that I originally thought about talking about Holst, of course, but uh, about 6 months ago, I was contacted by a fellow named John Nichols, who was putting together a tribute book about Harry Begian. And this book was in connection with Blue Lake Fine Arts Camp's 60th anniversary. You probably know Blue Lake, that's over in Michigan. And so you knew Begian pretty well, and we want you to write. And I thought, great, and so anyhow, this presentation is connected kind of with that. And I will be going back and forth between what I've got on PowerPoint and what I had written. So please excuse my awkwardness a little bit. But anyhow, Harry Begian, born 1921, died in 2010. This is one of his last pictures and one of his best pictures, actually, at University of Illinois. This is dramatic. I have to talk about the start of Harry Begian happening before he was born, because it was such an impressionable part of his life. You couldn't remove it from him. The Armenian genocide, which happened between 1913 and 1915, is not as well documented as it should be. The Turks murdered between 600,000 and 1,500,000 Armenians during this time, okay? Harry Begian's parents were born in Armenia. They were Armenian, of course. His father immigrated to America about 1913, just before the atrocities started. And the idea was, of course, in the case of so many immigrants, okay, one person would come and then the other family members would follow, okay? And anyhow, World War I happened. His father landed a job with a Ford Motor Company where he worked for more than 40 years, but his mother and older sister were not so lucky. His mother was marched south into Syria and Lebanon. Her infant daughter, which would have been Harry Begian's older sister, died in this horrible march that they had. She arrived in America in early 1920 after World War I had ended. Harry Begian was born in Pontiac, Michigan. You can see it's near Detroit there, just north. His father moved the family right away to Dearborn, Michigan, just southwest of Detroit, allowing Begian to be able to get into the city as a teenager and hear the Detroit Symphony, and to watch the Detroit's conductor and also guest conductors that appeared. So he was interested in becoming a conductor all the way from his teenage years. In Michigan, Harry Begian studied cornet with Leonard B. Smith, who wrote what? Nobody knows? Treasury of Scales? Anybody ever played Treasury of Scales? Okay. Anybody ever do that seductive number 19? There we are, yes, okay. So, yeah, Leonard B. Smith was also the, he played trumpet in the Detroit Symphony and also conducted the Detroit Concert Band. Harry Begian also studied with Larry Teal. He studied flute with Larry Teal, although Teal was known as a concert saxophonist at that time. In his early 20s, Harry Begian was drafted into military service and served in the Pacific during World War II. Afterwards, he taught 2 years at Mackenzie High School in Detroit before teaching and conducting at Lewis B. Cass High School, which is this one here, Lewis B. Cass Technical High School, where he developed one of the very best bands in the country in high school bands. This high school was a magnet school, okay? And there are quite a number of, I don't know, well-known people, celebrities who actually graduated from this. Diana Ross from the Supremes actually was a graduate of Cass Tech. Here on the right, you can see he was there for 17 years, had this fantastic high school band, and this album here was released, Symphonic Band, a documentary. It sold out almost instantly, okay? He had quite a band there. He talked about it all the time. Get into that later. There he is, okay? He went to University of Michigan for his doctorate and studied alongside and with the legendary William D. Ravelli. Harry Begian's thesis topic was Komidas Vartabed, who is said to be essentially the founder of Armenian music. Okay, so that was with him. Okay, here he is studying about all the instruments, studying about conducting and everything else, and yet his thesis, a historical one on Komidas Vartabed. I read the thesis as part of a requirement for a music research course that I was taking while I was working on my doctorate, and it's really quite detailed and superb, really. Great thesis. So after receiving his doctorate, he moved on to conduct at his alma mater, Wayne State University. And he was there 3 years, 1964 to 67. And then he went to Michigan State University for another 3 years, 1967 to 1970. And here he is with Bill Moffitt. Anybody know Bill Moffitt? Sound Power Fanfares from the 1960s. Begian and Moffitt did not get along. Okay, Harry Begian, his father worked hard every day of the week at Ford Motor Company. Bill Moffitt would show up twice a week. He'd write his Sound Power Fanfares and everything. He'd go home and just work at home. And so they didn't get along. The work ethic was quite different. In 1970, he started at the University of Illinois. He became only the third director of bands there. This is the Harding Band Building, the very first in the country to be built exclusively for university bands. It was dedicated in 1958. It is located across campus from the School of Music, yet it's within walking distance. Part of the reason why it's located across campus is because it was located a direct walk from the football field. Okay, so. The University of Illinois bands have quite a history. There was a band that started up in the 1890s, but A.A. Harding, Albert Austin Harding, was the first director of bands, and he started in 1905. Harding experimented with instrumentation. He tried everything. He wanted his band to be a symphonic band, the equivalent of any orchestra of the day. Yeah, here we have the sarrusophone section from about 1920. Anybody ever hear a sarrusophone? Yeah, you can listen online, okay? It will be an experience you'll never forget, okay? So, the sarrusophone section from about 1920. Mark Hinesley. Mark Hinesley was A.A. Harding's assistant from 1934. In 1948, Mark Hinesley assumed the role of, well, he succeeded Harding as director of bands. And he kept Harding's military nomenclature for 2 of the 3 bands. It's interesting. His band, the largest band, the top band, had 125 players under under Mark Hinesley. This was called the concert band. The band below it was the 1st Regimental Band, and the band below that was the 2nd Regimental Band. Okay, so when Harry Begian arrived, he diminished the size of the group, the top group, to 95 members. He said 125, just too large, not manageable. And this is from his first year here, there at University of Illinois. And the group was still called the concert band, but he changed that after his first year so that it was called the large symphonic band. Below it was the small symphonic band of about 60 players. And then the regimental bands were now called the concert bands. This was Harry Begian's original seating at Cass Tech, which he also used at Illinois. And one of the things that really worked well was the concept of the conical brass instruments. You can see the horns up there in front of the tubas, and then the euphoniums, baritones, all together, okay, in one sound. You can also see a large group here of alto clarinets that he got rid of pretty quickly. I don't know if he just threw them all out or decided, well, he actually decided that they were unimportant. He didn't want to deal with them. So that was it. But this was, his seating chart here. Harry Begian inherited the record series that Mark Hinesley had instituted in 1950. And the first 59, upper left-hand corner here, all had the same cover, and they were all numbered by hand on the flip side. So from the cover, you wouldn't know what was going on. And if you turned it over, unless somebody had marked it in pen, you wouldn't know which record was inside. But the first 59 were conducted by Mark Hinesley, okay? And that's that large 125-piece band, okay? Harry Begian continued this series starting with number 60. And with him is a little bit different. You can see the bottom here, each one was now, you could tell them apart on the back, okay? And listed what there was on the back. So he championed marches. You can see on the upper right, famous continental marches was record number 93. And more on that this afternoon. Well, early on, the University of Illinois band recorded 2 albums here. Music of Carl King in 1971-72. And that was when Carl King had just passed at that time. And then we have also the Henry Fillmore album, which came out a year or 2 later. Begian was also an advocate of Percy Grainger's music. He had actually met Grainger when he was a teenager, when his band director in Dearborn actually knew Grainger and had him come out and visit the band. And so that was really interesting. Well, anyhow, the University of Illinois recorded a 2-album set, numbers 74 and 75. And these were released about 1975-76. So already, 2 major albums there, or 3 major albums there, Carl King, Henry Fillmore, and Percy Grainger were released within his first few years. Many of you know the music of Alfred Reed. In 1972, Harry Begian commissioned him to compose a suite of Armenian dances. Begian gave him the songs. These were songs that he heard his father sing around the house And he said, okay, here, use these. Let's see what you can do with them. And of course, Reed came up with this splendid suite or collage, whatever you want to call it, lasting about 11 minutes of Armenian dances. Okay, that's today it's known as set number 1. Years later, Reed completed a second set of Armenian dances with songs that Harry Begian did not know. So anyhow, both of these together last about 29 minutes, and quite an undertaking. Harry Begian took his title, Director of Bands, very seriously, not only conducting, but also being involved quite a bit with the Marching Illini. And so he was out there front and center with everything. When he got to Illinois, he was also placed in charge of the Sousa Archives and the Center for American Music, which are all together. Sousa Archives, right here it's a full score of the University of Illinois March that was composed in 1926 by John Philip Sousa, who called the University of Illinois band the finest college band in the world. Okay, over on the right, the Kohala Girls from Chicago, Illinois, is part of the Center for American Music. Those are Hawaiian guitars, and it's from a 1934 picture, and oh dear, okay? One can only imagine what all of that would have sounded like or what that would have looked like in performance, but there we are. And no, I don't think they ever played with the band. When Begian first came to University of Illinois, he had some people that had been there for a while. One was on the right here, or on the left, I'm sorry, Guy Duker. Guy Duker was a former president of CBDNA. And Duker, his title was assistant to the director, which was ridiculous. In the Mark Hinesley era, Guy Duker would be there backstage making sure that Hinesley's coat was correct, brushing off dandruff and doing everything else to make sure that Hinesley was there. He started to do that with Begian. And be like, no, get up, no. That was it. But Guy Duker was quite a band orchestra, band orchestrator, shall we say, okay? He did all sorts of transcriptions that are really marvelous. The Pines of Rome. He also did transcription of Leonard Bernstein, a suite from Leonard Bernstein's film music On the Waterfront. And Bernstein told Duker that he liked it better as a band arrangement than the original orchestral that he had written. So that was quite a compliment. Duker was a very exacting teacher, very exacting. I owe so much to him in regard to band arranging. Just a tremendous teacher, okay? In 1976, Gary Smith was brought on to do the Marching Illini. Everett Kissinger had retired. Gary Smith had a fantastic career there at the University of Illinois with the Marching Illini, but also with other groups as well. By 1978, counting the 300-member Marching Illini, there were over 700 people involved, 700 students involved in the University of Illinois band program. And this is fantastic. There were now 5 concert performing ensembles. The symphony band had 95 players. That was conducted by Harry Begian. Symphonic 2 had 85 players, and that was conducted by assistant band director Thomas Harris. Tom Harris was a fantastic musician. His life was cut short by a heart attack at the age of 33. The top two bands were mostly music majors and grad students. Below that now, the first concert band was conducted by Gary Smith, and this had 105 students. The second concert band was so large that it was split into two. Section A had 115 players. That was conducted by University of Illinois band's business manager, Eldon Oyen, while Section B, 70 players, was given over to the conducting interns. In 1979, 1980, the one on the right, that was Marcellus Brown and myself. Okay, we shared the conducting internship there. These were the posters that went around the university. And you can see, these were only 8.5 by 11, a small budget, okay? Nothing like the wonderful digital posters of today, you know. But, you know, these worked, and it was what it was. For the online book that I told you about at the beginning, I was requested to find a picture of Harry Begian and myself. I found one. This is it. He's here and I'm here. So, well, you know, they didn't say close-ups, you know, so that's the way it was. Harry Begian retired from the University of Illinois at age 63 in 1984. And he was coaxed out of retirement to temporarily conduct at Purdue University, the Purdue Concert Band. And he did that for 2 years. At that time, I was at a small college in southern Indiana, Hanover College, where I had been I was there for 5 years. So I drove up to Purdue and went up and heard him conduct there and went up to see him. And it was interesting. Right after the concert, we talked, and he told me characteristically, I must have been out of my mind. And indeed, who's to say? In his later years in retirement, every summer he would conduct at Blue Lake Fine Arts Camp, okay? And in retirement, he wrote a number of articles for the Instrumentalist magazine. You can see them here. Conductor's Responsibilities on down through Conducting Wisdom. And December 2002, nothing can match the wonderful sound of a full concert band. Okay? And that really sums up how he felt about the band medium. Okay? There's so much more that I could say. I don't want to run over my time too much. But he talked about the sonorities of the band. He did not like wind ensembles unless they were wind ensembles that were written for particular instrumentation. Okay? He loved, for example, the Richard Strauss Serenade and the suites. Okay? He really loved the Mozart Grand Partita Serenade in B flat. Okay? He did not like, even hated, I could say, the Eastman Wind Ensemble's recording of Wagner. They did a Wagner album. It's great, it's clean, but it's Fennell. It's more Fennell. He had a feud with Fennell And this stems for, and this might be, again, this might just be, a story. But supposedly he had invited Fennell to guest conduct, okay? And he was warming up the band. And he said, okay, well, Mr. Fennell, and he always called him Mr. Fennell because he didn't have a doctorate. Okay, Mr. Fennell, it's your turn. Well, Fennell got up to the podium, looked at the score, closed it, threw it on the floor. He said, okay, we don't need this now, and went on. And that was the start of the feud, supposedly. And it continued onward. Part of being a graduate student, a doctoral student with Harry Begian was going to seminars. And within the seminars, there was also a component of having private lessons. And Begian liked the idea of having recordings and then conducting to recordings because it would force the person to somehow or another adopt the ideas of the conductors on the records. Okay. Well, I brought in a recording once of Suite Française, okay? Frederick Fennell and the Eastman Wind Ensemble, okay? And we're listening to this. Okay, fine. After we get done, he looks at me and I said, oh, do you know the third and fourth horns don't come in on this recording at this point? And Fennell looks at me and said, they don't? Hey, let's hear it again. So he wanted to hear the fact that the Eastman Wind Ensemble recording, that Fennell blew it on the recording and didn't bring in the third and fourth horns. Hey, let's hear it again. Well, you know, that stuff happens. Anyhow, moving along, this is the cover to his book. A number of years passed after I saw him at Indiana, and this is about 2008 now at the Midwest Clinic. Anybody go to the Midwest Clinic here and there? Yeah, this was like the last year when it was in the Conrad Hilton Hotel, where you had this wonderful labyrinth in the basement where all of the displays were. And I ran into him. And it was really something. He was being led around by his daughter, Marianne. And I told him that I had been now conducting the orchestra at University of Massachusetts, Boston. And he was listening and nodding his head. He said, that's good, I knew you'd do something. And then he said, you know, I don't remember much anymore. And I noticed that he was failing. And then he looks at me right in the eye and goes, but I do remember you. And I remember him. And that's it.